Read the disclaimers, and please use common sense.
Okay, so picture this. It's August of 2015. You've just entered high school, and as a part of the curriculum, you've gotten your first personal computer. As your voice begins cracking so frequently that you start joking your part pterodactyl, you decide to use your newfound digital freedom to do what any teenager would do. Pirate Power Rangers on KissCartoon.com. But then you go onto YouTube and find videos discussing Power Rangers, and through that, you discover that Power Rangers is actually an adaptation of Super Sentai, an even longer-running TV show from Japan. But Super Sentai wasn't the series that invented spandex-clad superheroes punching monsters so hard that they explode. The entire genre is known as tokusatsu, or special effects, and it's older than both of your parents. Congratulations, you've just basically Undertaled and Delta-ruined your way into an internet rabbit hole. Tokusatsu has you under a spell, and the ones to cast it on you are the Kamen Riders.
Rider! Henshin! Kamen Rider! Decay! Rabbit Tank! Best match! 30!
Yeah, Kamen Rider kicks ass, but at the same time, it can be wholesomely goofy. It contains so many live-action anime hijinks that make it so lovable. Even when I jokingly dunk on the show like this, they're men in tights. They roam around the forest and random rock quarries looking for fights. I'm doing it all out of love because this show changed my life. Its impact on the stories I like to tell and the art I like to make is indelible. It's inspired me to write, to draw, and to create the shirt that you've seen in most of my videos. It even replaced the MCU as my favorite superhero media franchise of all time. Which is even funnier because half of the CGI in Kamen Rider looks like it was meant to be played on a PS2, and it's still somehow more watchable than Quantum Mania.
Whose idea was this?
I love talking about Kamen Rider, but at the same time, I know it's a very niche fandom, which is why I haven't made a video about it for this channel. I've always operated under the reasonable assumption that most of you discovered me through my Transformers content, and that's what you want to watch me do, talking about the funny giant truck man. Though the unexpectedly high popularity of last year's TMNT video did surprise me, and it's kinda got me changing my tune. But I know better than to expect lightning to strike twice. I was trying to find a common ground that Kamen Rider fans and Transformers fans share, and it seems as though the ground doesn't get much more common than Blokees. Blokees, or maybe it's Blokees, I really don't know how to parse that, is a franchise/company that I'm sure some of you already know about. They make small but detailed model kits for franchises like Transformers, Saint Seiya, Hatsune Miku, the MCU, and Sesame Street? Well, I didn't know that the Muppets were considered tokusatsu, but hey, if this means we get a Gonzo that can turn into Ultraman, I'm game. Yeah, anyways, I wasn't gonna give Blokees a chance for one simple reason, and that was the feeling that the community hype train was trying to run me over. So I decided to be an obnoxious prick about it to Dr. Lockdown and say I would only buy Blokees if they made ones based on Kamen Rider.
Firebite, I don't know how to tell you this, but yeah, they do actually.
The feeling of karma having a 16-ounce can of whoop-ass with my name on it aside, I was true to my word and bought a case off of Tokulectables. However, I was still nervous about trying out Blokees. First up, how does it feel to build a Blokees? Well, if you missed my Blokee build streams, entirely possible considering these dwindling view counts, then it's my pleasure to tell you that this building process is actually a lot of fun. If you've ever built a Gunpla kit before, it's a lot like that, except it's way simpler. Most Gunpla kits might require as many as 4 4 to 8 pieces just to complete the forearm. But on a Blokee, you rarely ever need more than 5 pieces to complete an arm. The most I've ever seen them use on a single arm has been 6 pieces. And while the build is mostly the same from figure to figure, right down to the parts used, each figure in the set seems to have its own distinguishing feature, even though all of the Geats riders have the exact same backplate. It's little things like Punk Jack's cape, Buffa's hair, and Boost Fever's little scarf and back printing that keep you from noticing. Then Boost Mark III shows up and suddenly it's thrown into full focus in brilliant, blinding white. However, that's more of a problem with the deco, and it doesn't exactly feel natural to segue from how it feels to build a figure into how it looks. However, there is a subject that it does segue into quite naturally. How does it feel to pose these model kits? You see, it wasn't just Blokee hype overexposure that was making me hesitant. Prior to this, I've only ever built Gunpla kits, which have some of the nastiest, most diseased-feeling joints I have ever felt in my life. Now, I'm not going to go as far as to say, "Durr, all Gundam bad!" Especially because I have found redeeming qualities on Gunpla kits. Like, I can't ever say that I've found the process of building a high-grade model kit to be particularly loathsome or anything. They're mostly photogenic so long as you aren't a complete dunce with your lighting, and the kits look fine on their own so you don't really have to paint some of them. But in my experience, it's felt as though I've only ever been allowed to enjoy a Gunpla kit when I'm putting it together. It feels like it's fine with me when it's on a shelf chilling far away from my hands, but as soon as I go to reach for it, it's like, and look, I know it has to be this way on some level, and that I'm ignoring the limitations of a $20 plastic model kit I got on Amazon. And you know what? It's fair to call me biased because this is an apples to oranges situation. I love oranges way more and will say that oranges are the best every time. But the limitations of a $20 model kit quickly become a moot point in excusing the bad joints on a model kit when the joints on the smaller and cheaper model kits that only cost $6 feel better. The joints on most Gundam kits feel a bit rickety and loose, but the joints on a Blokee's model kit feel buttery smooth and tight. And most of these figures have it all in terms of articulation: head, shoulders, knees, waist swivels, and toes. Even the dumbbell joints that hold their torsos together and give them a nice ab crunch and arcing back feel amazing. The time I spend getting Tycoon and Punk Jack into poses feels sublime. They can do whatever funny little jigs I want them to without the fear of coming apart in my hand. And while they do have fewer points of articulation than most Gunpla kits do, having joints that feel better is more than worth the trade-off of having fewer of them, in my opinion. And don't worry, there are plenty of other things to get mad over with these model kits. Like, for example, why do some figures get printing on no sides of their shoulder pads while some figures get printing all the way around? Wait, that actually makes complete sense. In the case of the former, you're actually saving budget for other figures. Same goes for the lack of back printing, actually. They clearly want you to display these figures from the front, so it makes sense not to put any effort into the backs. At that point, you'd just be wasting money unnecessarily. And hey, at least most of the shoulder pads have a wraparound effect so the back isn't completely blank. No, it makes no sense whatsoever is what they did with Boost Mark III. Now, I don't envy the team at Blokees one bit when they were told to work on this particular design. Pure white decos are hard to get right on the best of days. Use too much of the wrong shade of white and your toy quickly becomes an eyesore. Color schemes like Mark III here need a lot of breakup in order to make them work, and I don't think the team at Blokees quite had the schmagic, if you get what I mean. Why does schmagic make me think of an ingredient they would use in chowder? I'm not going to pretend I know what kind of budget the Blokees team was working with when they made this figure, but I do know that my opinion of this figure would have improved exponentially if they included printing on both sides of the shoulder pads, as well as the red patches on his forearm guards. If nothing else, that should have been included. Especially because Decade waltzed in and showed that you could do front printing only on the shoulder pads and still have the figure look great from every conceivable angle. Okay, I'll be blunt with you, those were all just my nitpicks. Believe it or not, I do actually have some problems with these model kits. First and foremost is variety. Each wave of the Galaxy class usually has at least 10 unique figures to collect. They sell box sets in groups of 9, and you are guaranteed at least 8 of the 10 in every single box set. The figures you're guaranteed in Wave 1 of the Kamen Rider Galaxy class Blokees are Geats Boost Magnum, Boost Mark III Geats, Buffa Zombie, Tycoon Ninja, Kamen Rider Punk Jack Monster, a Giamato Foot Soldier, Kamen Rider Gotchard Steam Hopper Form, and Spanner. The two you aren't guaranteed are Kamen Rider Decade, who has a chance of being in 3 out of 4 box sets, and Geats Boost Fever, which has a chance of being in 1 in 4 box sets. Now you might be confused over why this is a problem for variety, or by whatever the hell the word salad that just came out of my mouth means. Well, allow me the pleasure of spelling it out for you. 7 out of the 10 figures are all from the same season. Which, if you're a big fan of Kamen Rider Geats, that's a good thing. It means you can collect basically all of the main riders in a single go, excluding Nago for some bizarre reason. But if you don't want a character from Geats, you don't have a lot of options. And it's even worse for people who want monsters/villains for the riders to fight, because only one of the figures in the set is a monster. This might be a surprise to those of you who don't watch Kamen Rider, but Kamen Rider Buffa is an antagonist, but he's not necessarily a villain, and Spanner Kurogane just isn't an antagonist in any way whatsoever. He just works for the alchemy government. That leaves the Giamato as our one sole villain, and he's just a foot soldier, no stronger than a putty patroller. He's not just gonna have his ass kicked, it's gonna be beaten to a pulp like that one guy from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure by every single rider in the room. And sure, he could be a lot of fun to army build, but need I remind you, these are blind boxed. So in order to army build, you'll either have to A, pay extra in order to get the exact figure you want, or B, spend a bunch of money on box sets, and spend a good few weeks waiting for the remaining 8 figures from each box set to get sold off on your eBay page. And you know what? Weirdly enough, I'd actually be comfortable recommending buying multiple box sets, especially when toy customization is something I am very open to. But ultimately, I don't think I can recommend customizing Blokees for one simple reason. You cannot disassemble the legs. Sadly, I don't have any footage of me building the legs that can adequately show the problem, so you'll have to make do with the instruction sheet. Okay, so the leg is split into 2 halves. We have a top half that's 2 pieces and a bottom half that's technically 3 pieces. And in the middle, we have a knee piece that has a hole that is completely hollow and one that is filled in the middle. The top part of the leg goes into the non-hollow hole, and the hollow hole goes into the bottom part of the leg. And once it's in, it's not coming out without majorly damaging the model kit. If you don't believe me, allow me to direct your attention to the shins of my Kamen Rider Decade model kit. If you didn't notice, I accidentally got the shin parts onto the wrong legs. And when I tried to pop them off and swap them, I accidentally broke one of the knee parts. Now, whenever a toy breaks, the blame will fall in one of 2 directions. Either it's the toy's fault for being poorly designed, clear plastic ball and socket joints not even once, or it's the user's fault for being an idiot. And while it's definitely not the toy's fault that I put the shins on backwards, I feel the designers are still at fault for designing pieces that are easier to break off than they are to take off. It feels like something that's only there to discourage people from trying to customize their own Blokees. I know I bitched up a storm about Gunpla earlier in this video, but at the same time, you'll never catch me saying that they do customizers dirty. It even feels like basic customization like swapping around the Geats powers is discouraged. I do not blame anyone if the upcoming rant is so nerdy that it makes you want to unsubscribe from my channel. Okay, so check this. In most Kamen Rider seasons, every character gets their own unique power-up. A great example of this is how Kamen Rider Faiz, the character, is the only character in the Kamen Rider Faiz TV show that gets to use the Axle and Blaster forms. These tools are never given to, and their powers are never used by, the Reddit incel that is Kamen Rider Kaiksa, or Kamen Rider Delta. However, Geats decided to put a new spin on this tradition established in the Heisei era by turning every single power-up the riders could use into Fortnite drops, which is appropriate given how Fortnite inspired Kamen Rider Geats. And the way it worked was actually pretty cool. The riders wouldn't have any color in their eyes at first, and then once as you got a power up on them, their eyes would change colors. It's just too bad that replicating this gimmick in the real world would be a bit too expensive on model kits. No matter what you do, Kamen Riders Geats and Buffa will always have orange eyes, Kamen Rider Tycoon will always have reddish pink eyes, and Kamen Rider Punkjack will always have blue eyes. Fortunately, Kamen Rider Geats and Buffa's shared eye color means that you can swap around their armors, but that's about as far as it goes while still being canonically accurate. And hey, the interchangeability does mean that you can replicate Kamen Rider Decade's main gimmick, but just swapping around the belts isn't much of a visual change, you know? Although that said, it is a lot of fun to see the what-if scenarios of Kamen Rider Decade turning into the Reiwa era riders instead of the Heisei ones, especially because I loathe the Kamen Rider Legend costume. That gaudy suit can eat shit and die. But here's the real question. Do these few problems make me any less excited for future waves of Blokee's Kamen Rider Galaxy class figures? Absolutely not! Galaxy Class Wave 1 has only barely wet my whistle. And like a certain pumpkin man from shovelware shitpost fame, I'm very hungry. for more Kamen Rider Blokees. Now whatever this weird blue ball is. And hey, I've already got most of Volume 2, and most of Volumes 1 and 2 of the All-Star class. And fuck me, it actually took so long to make this video that they actually revealed Wave 3 of the Galaxy class, subtitled Battle Games. And oh my god, it's featuring X8, one of my favorite rider suits of all time, and the star of my most viewed video on this platform. Look, I'm gonna be frank with you all. I know this video isn't gonna do well with my normal audience. And your reaction to this entire video might have been, what the heck is he talking about? But like I said at the start of this episode, I've wanted to make a video on Kamen Rider for years, and making it finally at episode 115 has been nothing short of therapeutic. Does this mean the channel is suddenly a Kamen Rider channel? No. But does this mean that this is the last time I'll talk about Kamen Rider? Also no. Like I said at the start, Kamen Rider put a spell on me, and it's one that I won't be trying to cast off for a long time to come. Besides, I didn't get to talk about everything I wanted to mention in this video, and that's alright. Like I said, I don't want to make any videos that are over 20 minutes from now on. You can bet your butter that I'll be back for rounds 2 and 3 in the future, and that I'll be giving a look to the smaller size class in the future because hey now, they're an all-star. And hey, if you stuck around until the end even though you're not a Rider fan, thanks. If this video somehow made you a fan, then welcome to the Kamen Rider fandom, we've got cookies. And until the next time I make a video, whether it be Kamen Rider related or not, this is Firebite27, over and out.